Is it still a good idea to switch some or all of your Microsoft licensing to CSP in 2022? But we are still buying the same Microsoft licenses, aren't we? Well, you'll be surprised. One of the things that I came to realize pretty quickly in this business was procurement. IT procurement doesn't have time for nitty-gritty licensing details. Things are overwhelming enough. There are hundreds of vendors to manage. See, Microsoft and Microsoft partners, they know that too. I bet you haven't been told more than a half of what I'm about to explain. Just look at the content around CSP and Microsoft licensing out there. How much of it is aimed at you, the end customer, that just wants to understand if you're getting a fair deal behind all the smoke and mirrors of buying the value? You'll find that 99% of all the available information is catered to Microsoft partners. It teaches how to sell, not how to procure licenses in the best way. It doesn't even mention the breaking changes between the enterprise agreement that you're used to in the last 20 years and the new commerce experience. The differences are not purely commercial. Quite a few of them affect compliance. And even your IT strategy may have to be readjusted, realigned, reconsidered accordingly. Same products, different rules. And if you have been buying CSP licenses in the last 5 years, there are strategic changes that will affect you too with the new commerce experience. Well, the name is there for a reason. If your time is short, please feel free to skip to any part of this video using the play bar below. But if you have a bit more time, please watch the entire recording. By doing so, you'll learn a lot. And also, you will have this video to be seen by more people like you so they can benefit from it. And it helps this channel too. But I digress. I'll tell you a story about a friend of mine who also happens to be a CIO of a large-sized company and a long-term client. We're going to call her Jennifer to respect her privacy. Jennifer has been procuring licenses for the last 15 years, predominantly through a Microsoft Enterprise agreement. From time to time, purely for economic reasons, she would authorize a purchase order through a different licensing program. But because in volume licensing, as it used to be, the licensing rules are not that much different between the enterprise agreement and other types of agreements. That was most of the time only about what is strategically cheaper. As in many companies that haven't been created yesterday, Jennifer has a sizable on-premise server estate that her team has migrated in years from physical to virtual servers, and now they're moving some of their workloads to Azure and AWS. A few years ago, she switched all her users to Office 365, which is now called Microsoft 365, but her IT still runs legacy Office applications on both servers and desktops. And that is a scenario we see almost everywhere these days. She is also not new to CSP, but its share in the overall Microsoft estate of Jennifer's IT is only about 10%. She likes CSP for its flexibility, the ability to cancel licenses at any time on a monthly billing schedule. Jennifer has recently been considering if it's a good idea to move more, if not the entire Microsoft licensing portfolio, to CSP. She has no issues with it being fundamentally subscription-based, and as I said, she likes that flexibility. Moreover, she is under constant pressure from salespeople from various IT companies, including her incumbent LSP, and several outsourcers supporting her systems. Traditionally, most of you would go to an LSP to buy licenses, not directly to Microsoft. Enterprise agreements work through LSPs. Once you've signed an EA, you're attached to an LSP. Becoming an LSP is tough, there aren't that many of them. CSP, on the other hand, is a much broader program, which is also predominantly indirect, so you're buying through Microsoft partners. And becoming a CSP is much easier than becoming an LSP. Therefore, there are multiple CSP partners. And you can even have multiple CSPs simultaneously providing your licenses and supporting your systems, unlike with the enterprise agreement. The entire program was designed by Microsoft to embed licenses in the services you're getting from your service providers, from your IT outsourcers and from your suppliers. So a lot of them, understandably, jumped onto the CSP bandwagon. Plus, traditional hardware manufacturers are getting serious about CSP due to the massive shift from the hardware purchases to the cloud. There are, for example, names like Lenovo and HP very serious about becoming a formidable force in the area. And as you may imagine, many LSPs are offering CSP licenses these days as well. So my friend Jennifer is constantly pushed and pulled towards CSP by a plethora of partners. Trying to answer Jennifer's concerns, we sat down with her and strategically looked at the entire picture. And here's how you can do that too. Before you even begin looking into licenses, you need to write down all the milestones, all the key projects in your IT. Here is the Jennifer's list, reduced to keep it simple. Her enterprise agreement expires in June 2022. She plans to migrate 20 to 30% of all the workloads to Azure by the end of the year. She wants to move all the development to the cloud, but that's not yet certain. And according to her IT, the last physical service should be virtualized by the time when her enterprise agreement expires. In reality, the list we put together with Jennifer was much longer. And although not everything in your plans may affect your licensing, we suggest writing down every single project you have in your mind for the upcoming 1 to 3 years. Then we looked at the service. We don't usually begin with the service because these days 80% of all the budgets are in desktop software in Microsoft 365. But I promised you a real story, so that's just how it went. Microsoft Service may be split into 5 major groups. The next 3 are still relevant in 2022. Most of you will still have them. I'm talking about operating systems, Windows Server, management, System Center, and database, Microsoft SQL Server. In addition, you may also have Dynamics, which is nowadays, at least in our client base, is predominantly in the cloud, and Office servers, the likes of Exchange and SharePoint. These are a dying breed with the migration to Office 365, Microsoft 365, but many organizations with the legacy IT, they may still be running them, and there's a chance you are still running them too. And since Office servers are the simplest of them all, we'll start with them. Jennifer had already cancelled Office server licenses when she migrated all the users to Microsoft 365, although her organization still runs a few instances on-premise. All of them are virtualized, which plays a significant role in license compliance, in how you choose the correct licensing model. But how is she still compliant, you may ask? Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 plans, when you procure them through an enterprise agreement, permit you to run unlimited instances of Office service on premises for the licensed users. You can learn more about Microsoft 365 licensing in the video I linked in the description. And here comes the first consideration about switching to CSP. The same exact licenses procured through CSP do not grant these rights for Office service. See, same products, different rules. So in that regard, what options does Jennifer have? Option number 1, she could purchase new Office server licenses. But since the servers are virtualized, remember I told you it's important, she would need licenses with software assurance. So this option would not offer a clean break from the pre-CSP licensing. Number 2, she could decommission all the Office servers and move all the workloads to the native Microsoft 365 services to the cloud. Why not? That was one of the options we discussed as well. And option number 3, she could potentially move all the Office servers back to physical servers and use the legacy licenses without software assurance, but that would be against the other plans that she has towards physical servers. Fortunately though, the cost of these licenses is relatively low. It won't break the bank, whichever option she would choose. But it's still one of the things to consider when switching to CSP. Now let's move on to the most expensive and probably most important part of the server estate, which is Windows Server and, for some of you, System Center. We are looking at them together here because they often go hand in hand. In Jennifer's case, her organization's IT uses System Center to manage almost every server. Plus, there's a discounted bundle, which is called Core Infrastructure Suite, which includes both of these products at a discounted price. If you'd like to learn more about Windows Server licensing and server licensing in general, you can use the video I linked in the description and in the card up here. On top of all that, as a part of her enterprise agreement, Jennifer also has a server cloud enrollment, which gives her an additional 10% discount on these licenses. Another consideration, because that discount is not available through CSP. If you'd like to learn more about Microsoft agreements, there's another video I linked in the description and up here that you can watch after you watch this one. Now, let me remind you of what's going on with Jennifer's IT. Physical servers are being virtualized, thus reducing the need for core infrastructure standard licenses, but not necessarily increasing demand for the data center licenses. And some of these workloads from here are being moved to Azure. And now let's look at what CSP offers in that regard. But I'd rather begin with what it doesn't. Firstly, there is no System Center in CSP at all. And hence, there is no discounted core infrastructure suite. And as a consequence, the discount of about 15% that Jennifer is getting currently through the server and cloud enrollment is unavailable. Windows Server Data Center, part of the core infrastructure suite data center that she is using on virtualized server farms, has no subscription option. Why am I mentioning subscription? CSP has no software assurance. Therefore, whichever benefits you're getting through software assurance, through your traditional licenses, are not available in perpetual licenses in CSP. They're only available in subscription licenses in CSP. And as a result, Jennifer would be missing the following 2 things if she switched to CSP entirely. The first thing is version upgrade rights. She wouldn't be able to upgrade to the most current Windows Server operating system. And the other thing is Azure Hybrid benefit, the ability to bring your own licenses to Azure, which provides substantial cost reductions. Was that a definite deal breaker for Jennifer? As usually with Microsoft licensing, there's no one-size-fits-all, no simple yes and no answer, and all things need to be considered together. Jennifer may decide to stop renewing software assurance on the core infrastructure suite data center and consequently Windows Server data center. The licenses themselves, the licenses she has, are perpetual, therefore nobody's going to take them from her. Plus, in my not so humble opinion, Azure Hybrid benefit is the only tangible benefit of software assurance for Windows Server data center. Version upgrades, which is the other benefit, don't happen that often. Microsoft has only recently released Windows Server 2022. Therefore, Jennifer may still upgrade to Windows Server 22 if she decides to do so, even after her software assurance expires. However, again, we should not discount the fact that she is migrating workloads to Azure and she may benefit from Azure Hybrid benefits. And for that, let's look at her transformation diagram again. Remember, these standard servers are being virtualized, therefore core infrastructure suite standard licenses are being freed up. Provided that Jennifer somehow renews software assurance on these licenses, she may take them to Azure. But again, there is no software assurance in CSP, so a renewal from an EA to a CSP is impossible. Is there an alternative option in CSP? Yes, for the standard edition, CSP has subscription licenses that provide equivalent rights to software assurance. You may take them to Azure and assign to Azure virtual machines. They're even called subscription licenses for Azure, and they're also cheaper than Azure pay-as-you-go licensing. If you're thinking about that as well, here are the few things you need to consider. Number one, your realistic time frame of migrations to Azure. Number two, again, a realistic time frame of decommissioning your Windows servers. Based on these two, you need a plan of when and how many licenses you will need. It's a gradual increase. You're not going to take everything tomorrow and move in one go from on-premises to Azure. And because it's gradual, if you stop paying for software assurance in your enterprise agreement and decide to take subscription CSP licenses to Azure, you don't have to buy them all straight away. Have a plan of adding licenses as you need them. You may have noticed that switching to CSP in regards to Windows Server and System Center may not be that painful if you have a good plan around it and if you understand what you're doing and how that affects your current IT and your transformational plans. If Jennifer, in her case, doesn't renew software assurance on her Windows Server and System Center licenses, the sky won't fall on Earth. She may continue running the infrastructure as she's running it. It's a question of cost, not compliance. But when it comes to database service, that is completely different. Microsoft SQL Server, when it's virtualized, requires software assurance. It also needs software assurance for business-critical, resilient solutions involving disaster recovery and high availability. So Jennifer could not simply cancel her enterprise agreement without a plan. She had to choose to either renew SQL Server in an enterprise agreement or find an alternative solution. For example, switching to subscription licenses in CSP. And fortunately, unlike with Windows Server, the calculation she had to do was a simple cost comparison of various options. Now let's recap the last two bits, Windows Server and SQL Server. Fortunately, CSP's licensing terms and conditions for this service are not that different from the enterprise agreement's licensing terms and conditions. You need to remember the following two things. There is no software assurance in CSP, and if you need it, most of the equivalent benefits are included in subscription licenses. I encourage you to always check if that is the case for the particular benefit you're using right now, and as a consequence, you should never consider perpetual licenses in CSP for your service if you need any of the software assurance benefits. And that concludes our server considerations. On the desktops, Jennifer's organization uses Windows 11 and Office 365 applications. As I said before, when she renewed her enterprise agreement last time, she chose to purchase Microsoft 365 E3 and E5. Those packages, those plans include both Windows operating systems and Office 365 applications, as well as some handy security features. We again had written down a few things about her IT that could impact her licensing decisions. Number one, in addition to desktops and laptops, Jennifer's organization uses virtual machines with Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7, even Windows XP. Those virtual machines are virtualized in the server environment on premise in a so-called VDI infrastructure. You may have that too. And number two, due to historical reasons, some of the users on some of the laptops and desktops in Jennifer's company continue running legacy applications like Office Professional Plus. If you're not familiar with Microsoft licensing, Office Professional Plus may not be used with an Office 365 license. It's a different product. It requires different licenses. When she switched years ago to Microsoft 365 E3 and E5, she bought the so-called From SA licenses, which are only available through the enterprise agreement. Those licenses in particular allow to install and use Office Professional Plus on the primary desktops and laptops of the licensed users. As long as Jennifer stays with the enterprise agreement, she doesn't need to change anything. But if she switched to CSP, both the above use cases will become non-compliant. Same products, different rules. Number one, CSP does not permit virtualizing Windows client operating systems on premise. And number two, there are no From SA SKUs. Therefore, those instances of Office Professional Plus on desktops and laptops would require additional licenses. If that is not serious enough food for thought, here are some cost and flexibility considerations. After the introduction of new commerce experience not long ago, CSP customers have the following commercial options of how to procure CSP. There are three types of subscriptions. First, it is a monthly term, and its price may change every month. It is also now 20% more expensive than you're used to. There's also an annual term. The price is fixed for 1 year, and reductions are not allowed until the end of the subscription. And in addition to that, there's a 3-year term. It has its price fixed for 3 years, and again, there are no cancellations allowed. There is no more flexibility that CSP customers have grown used to. How does that compare to the enterprise agreement? Well, in EA, the term is 3 years, as you probably know, but then each year you can reduce the number of licenses as you need. From many points of view, in the current uncertain economy, EA is a lower risk, and it also has additional discounts. If you like this video so far, please click like. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So you may be wondering what Jennifer decided to do in the end. How did that affect Jennifer's decisions about switching to CSP? Long story short, considering all the options we just discussed and the fact that we also negotiated a good discount from Jennifer's incumbent LSP, she decided not to switch. Would the outcome be the same for you? Not necessarily. Microsoft licensing, as you may have noticed, has many variables and moving parts, and everyone's story is different. But there is still something that has recently affected everyone's options, including yours, and that is new commerce experience. I'm not sure what Microsoft is trying to do. On one hand, they have been telling us for more than 10 years that the enterprise agreement is not fit for purpose, it's clunky, it's cumbersome. On the other hand, the enterprise agreement lobby, as I call it, inside Microsoft, appears to always win the battle with every licensing innovation that is thrown their way. The MPSA agreement, for example, if you remember that, was introduced to replace enterprise agreement. What is it now? CSP was our next hope, but look what they've done. Firstly, we're offered licenses that are effectively crippled compared to their enterprise agreement equivalents. Secondly, some enterprise-grade products like System Center are effectively missing from the CSP. And thirdly, all things considered, Microsoft 365 subscriptions through CSP are less appealing than in the enterprise agreement. If you watched our previous videos on the subject of switching from EA to CSP, you might have noticed that we were quite enthusiastic about the switch. I am not that convinced anymore. In the past year, we haven't seen a single case amongst our clients when switching to CSP would be better than renewing their existing enterprise agreement. But as I said, your situation may be different. If you want to assess it yourself, we would recommend you to do the following as we do with each of our clients. First, have a clear and realistic plan of your IT transformations for at least 3 years ahead. Second, make sure your cloud team and your licensing team are not competing for attention. They must collaborate. Third, understand what licensing terms and conditions your infrastructure, your use cases currently require, and what they will require in the next 3 years. And fourth, always account for Azure hybrid benefits. Do not ignore the offered cost-saving opportunity. Fifth, compare all the options financially, and also try and benchmark them if you're getting a fair market value. And the sixth thing is, never forget the differences in terms and conditions. Always remember that there may be differences between the EA and the CSP, or you may find yourself in a very peculiar situation when it's already too late. We're currently working on a high-level comparison white paper between the EA and CSP for enterprise-grade organizations, please reach out to us through our website if you'd like a copy. As usual, you'll find the link in the description. And if you'd like to learn more on the broader subject of EA versus CSP, here's a popular video on our channel that you can watch next. Good luck, have a great day, and I'll see you in the upcoming videos.